So mm, this is really the thing, it is carrying responsibility for one's existence. And this is a really difficult thing. And what most people do is that to do it sincerely, to do it with self-consciousness and with a strong sense of purpose. What most people do is that they embark on that journey of self-responsibility by following whatever it is that is feasible. There aren't really too many options in the first place. And people who look outside the box, and that is specifically the socioeconomic box, the reality, the environment in which one finds himself or herself born. Now, there are very few people who will look for alternatives. One of the reasons that we find ourselves attracted to the personalities of artists and people who are into other forms of money making or livelihood is that they resemble to the uh, um, general consciousness of the population, something that manages to survive despite of it being outside of this socioeconomic machinery. It's not just that we find them entertaining, it's that there's something unique about their personalities and about their livelihood. And of course, the renunciate practitioner is one who appears to the general consciousness in an even more impressive ways. But whatever it is that we end up following, all somehow suffers because of that self-responsibility. And of course, this is the ultimate meaning of life, is to willingly and consciously carry that self-responsibility. It's just that it's so heavy. This is the simple truth, is that it's very heavy and it's crushing, and what all of us try to do is to carry it with the least possible degree of pain. And it's not just the circumstantial socioeconomic conditions that determines the gravity of that journey and the heaviness of the responsibility. It's predominantly psychological, really. Of course, the materialistic dimension is also extremely important, and alone it can completely destroy a human being, or crush the resolve of a human being who is otherwise worthwhile and have a lot of potential. But even in the best of circumstances, materially speaking, there is still the psychological dimension of it. And I think this is precisely what ancient people were very conscious of and interested about. Because the possibilities of life in ancient times were so much more simple. And when people withdrew from the socioeconomic machinery of the time, which wasn't really as much dazzling and overwhelming as it is presently, of course, or ever since the Industrial Revolution. Things were more clear, let's say, were more evident to the mind of ancient people. And what we find in the Buddha's teachings is this very strong emphasis on the psychological experience and the psychological dimensions of self-responsibility. And that's the same in Buddhism as in any other spiritual doctrine, or even in contemporary Western psychology. What I found to be really wonderful about the Buddha Dharma, or the Buddha's teaching, is that the the Buddha seemed to have understood the importance of carrying the responsibility of oneself in the gentlest possible way, and to accept that the journey for a fuller extent of self-responsibility is possibly a very gradual one. And we see this clearly in how he often accepted everyone and believed that everyone is capable of making gradual progress. For example, say admitting people in the monastic order, for example. And even in discussion and debate with others, there are very few occasions where he refused to give a teaching or told someone that his way of teaching will not really work out for them. There are some cases, but they're very rare. And so there's this belief in the potential of every human being, but also understanding that the journey needs to be done with wisdom in terms of how much effort and what to expect from oneself and from others. So whatever you see around you, whatever people around you are doing in their own various different ways, all of us are in the end similar, even identical in this burden as we grow into adulthood. Everyone is struggling with this responsibility, and it has so many different shades. Much of it in the mundane world is of an economic nature, of a materialistic nature. In our spiritual world, it's mostly of a psychological nature, of a spiritual nature. And it's not always either this or that. It's sometimes also trying to carry the responsibility of both, which is really, really difficult, And so, we are all in it one way or another. We find ourselves here, and we have this strong sense of ability and of potential. And though we're going to use it for different purposes, and in the end there is this common theme in all of us about how we are responsible for who we are and for what we are and for what we do and our impact on the world and on others. And this is such a heavy burden. It's not something that is, despite of the fact that we enjoy ourselves, nevertheless deep down in the bottom of our hearts and in our unconscious minds, this is a constant source of worry and of anxiety and of heaviness. And I think it's very important to open up to it and to become aware of it in its fullest reality as much as possible. Because this really changes the way we look at the world and we look at ourselves and others, and stimulates the important question